Brown know. Today's discussion is all about having a conversation with Zoe and talking about what her life's about and how she does her thing. But as a reminder, the purpose around the session is actually an SME check-in, a way of business owners getting together, having a chat, and just sharing some useful information. We are at the time of year now where everything tends to slow down. We tend to want to quieten down and not think too much. But from a business perspective, it's always a good time to sort of reflect on where we've come from, particularly now with all the COVID and the lockdowns and all those discussions happening. It's a great time to sit back, have a good think about where we are and what we can do, and maybe try and come up with some new ideas, try and be creative and try and see where our businesses can go to. So I'm hoping and I'm sure that today Zoe will give us some great insight into how her life works, and maybe we can even steal some of her experiences to put into our own companies as well. So before we get to Zoe, I just want to quickly introduce a few concepts and just a few discussion points. And then I will hand over to Zoe because I'm far too boring apparently. So first thing is we need to just take a step back sometimes and assess where our companies are and what our companies are doing. And a great way of sort of putting it into perspective is to understand what life cycle we're currently in. So are we at that survival stage where we are fighting for every rand and cent? Are we potentially in a stage where we can have our companies afford our own personal lifestyle? So can we take our businesses and I don't want to live off them because that's not the right term, but are they providing for what we need in our lifestyles and our budgets? Or are we at that stage where we are able to scale? So we can take our companies, we can pretty much add some building blocks to it and grow rapidly. Or ideally, are we in a point where we can start looking at selling our businesses? So are we able to sit back, see our business operate and let it run on its own 2 feet, and then choose how we want to go in and out our businesses? And if we aren't in any of those, or don't do
Rotatrons disappeared suddenly.
Okay, I think just before we move on then, I think if we can ask everyone to mute themselves.
Sorry.
In case there's background noise, I know Lorraine tends to struggle with that sometimes. All right. So if we don't know where we are in the stages of our business, it's a good time to sit back and just ask those questions. Am I happy with where my business currently is? Is my business able to provide me with a sense of, having enough to get through the day? Or am I in a position where if I want to add more staff, more customers, I can easily scale and adapt? And from that perspective, we can then start looking at planning on moving where we want to take our companies to. So as a quick, just something to think about, what we want to start looking at, particularly I think for the year 2021, or for most of us financial years 2021, 2022, is trying to build a more resilient business. It was a very tough year for most of us. I'm sure most of us have lost some form of revenue or some aspect of revenue. And I think it's a good time to sit back now and think, what can I do to change or potentially make my business more resilient? And that also means looking at different options. A lot of us may have shifted or moved away from the traditional business models we've had, which is why I'm quite keen to talk to Zoe today, because I'm sure she can give us some more insight into looking at building personalities and that kind of stuff. But again, how do we move away from our stock standard business models and then maybe adding or offering a few more things? The second aspect to consider is, how do I take more control of where I am? So taking control in uncertain times is a very difficult aspect. And we firmly believe that taking the time now before you end your financial year and setting a good strategy with 2 Ys is a really good time to sort of structure, to plan, and start setting down some targets of where you want to reach or what you want to reach and achieve. And the easiest way of doing that is to look at your financials and set up your targets per revenue stream, the gross profit you'll make on those revenue streams, and of course, lastly, the operating profit you want there as well. If we can start setting down those targets, it becomes far easier to start building a plan or a strategy around how to achieve those. So taking the time away, looking at how to build these targets in place, and then starting to move forward and see how to achieve those. Sometimes setting targets is a very difficult thing, but if you don't set a target, the question is, how do you know you've made it? Then lastly, the only constant is change, right? No matter what we want to think or how we want to do things, the only constant is change. And particularly in times like this, and especially in business, you are always looking to change and adapt the way you do things. So trying to find new avenues, trying to find new ways of doing things, and trying to make things a bit more creative is always a good thing as well. All right. And then before we get to Zoe, I thought I'd just share just a few little pointers about how to set your vision. So the biggest idea for most of us is we all are surrounded by a team, whether we are an individual business owner, whether we are the person turning the screws, making the sale, doing the marketing, signing your financials. We still have a team around us, whether that's your life partner, whether that's your friends and family. you've got to get people involved around you to try and help you grow that. So the biggest thing about your vision is taking that vision and making sure you can get the buy-in from either your close team, your company, and help them influence the way that comes about. The second thing is understanding that we have to have goals versus our wishes. So a wish is something that's indefinite. There's no clear structure to how that wish evolves, but setting a goal allows you to put metrics in place about how that goal can be achieved, the little stepping stones of achieving that goal. And I'm sure that that Zoe's got a lot of goals that she worked towards, and from the small bit of a bio I read from her, she took her chances where they came. I think, if I remember correctly, a wild card in some presenting program or something. But anyway, I'm sure to get there. The last thing is to also make sure that we do our forecasts. So I know that's not a very nice topic, and I know that most people like Lisa tend to get very scared by the fact of forecasting. But again, just putting down those targets of something we can physically measure and something we can push towards achieving also sets us in the direction of how we're going to get there as well. So taking the time, setting down the targets, and trying to turn the more creative aspect of your business into a rands and cents discussion as well. And then lastly, your targets or your goals should scare you, right? They need to be smart, so specific, measurable, ambitious, and relevant. And lastly, time-based. But also you need to have that BHAG, that big, hairy, audacious goal you want to achieve. If we don't put that down, if we don't think about that, the chances are we'll never actually get there. So I would love to hear more from Zoe, and I'm sure you guys far less from me. And Zoe, I'm going to hand over to you to introduce yourself a little bit. And then I'm going to stop sharing my screen and my video, and we'll give it over to you so you can be the center of attention.
Thank you, Damien. Well, firstly, to everyone that is tuning in this morning, a very thank you to you. I really appreciate you taking the time. And when Lisa asked me if I would love to be part of Optigrowth, your SME check-in, I had to ask myself, what is it about my story that I can make relevant to you as a small business owner? And I think that's probably where the link is, because I treat myself and my brand as a business. And to the point where I am registered as Zoe Brown Pty Limited. And that took a while to wrap my mind around it, because at the end of the day, when I'm on TV, when I'm on radio, which I currently do, that is the service I deliver. So just a quick background on who I am for those who don't watch SABC3. I'm on the Expresso morning show, and I've also done some Afrikaans work. I did grow up Afrikaans, and I am currently in the Western Cape on KFM 94.5. So I do the afternoon drive show with Carl Wastie from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. So in a nutshell, that's me, but I do feel like there's a lot to it. I always joke and say I'm just an ordinary girl with an extraordinary job. But I do feel like each and everything leading up to where I am now, every challenge that I had to go through did prepare me for where I am right now. So to give you some background as to that. So a question I get asked all the time is, how did I end up on TV? How did I end up on radio? And the simple question is, it was never a lifelong dream of mine. In fact, when I was finishing up school and I had to think about what am I going to do after school, the first thought and mentality of my family was, well, you need a secure job. You need to make sure you study something that will bring you stability in life. So to give you background information on my mom and dad, I am very close to my parents and I love them dearly. And I also am allowed to poke fun at them. So both of them grew up in Ceres in the Western Cape. So every now and then I need to remind myself, maybe it's just like I don't want to say small-mindedness, but like klein dorpie syndrome, so no and done, but not all the time. So when I told my mom and dad I wanted to take a gap year after high school, that was a foreign concept for them. And I had to, encourage them that it's okay. I'm going to come back I'm going to come study. I promise I'm going to go to America for a year. And I ended up staying in America for a year and a half, which my mom was a bit shocked with. And also before I get into my building foundation, another thing I feel like mentioning is my dad he's an electrical engineer and he specializes in ship repairing. So we grew up in the Western Cape. He was working in Pardon Island, and then we relocated to Durban for his work. And when he was in Durban, the promises that were made never got delivered. And he realized it's either, things hit the fan or I break away from the corporate world and do my own thing. And that's what he ended up doing. And he always says to me, Zoe, a good boss pays himself last. And that is what our family experienced. So often, my family basically went through a massive financial dip when I was in high school. So that's just the background information on my family life. And you'll see now why I mentioned that, because it all plays a role in my outlook in life. So one of the reasons was I knew my parents couldn't afford to allow me to go and study. And so when I told my mom I'm going to study international relations, the first thing she asked me is, what do you become when you study international relations? Because in her mind, you do medicine, you become a doctor, you do accounting, you become an accountant, you do, you do education, I'm a teacher. So she wanted to know, what will I become when I study international relations? And I had to tell her, well, you don't become anything. It's just skills that you learn. And she couldn't wrap her mind around it. I realized that of they take presenters in, train them up, give them their own little show. Even the show was the graveyard show from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. And from there, you then can work your way up. But the whole idea is you have to be a student first. You have to, get experience, get exposure. It's not your main focus when you're at Stellenbosch. And that's where my love for radio started. I loved the process. And what I found so valuable was the policy of MFM. They had a policy they called it the revolving door policy, where they take a batch of students in, or young individuals. You don't necessarily have to be a student at Stellenbosch. They train you up with the idea of pushing you back into the world. And so often I apply that revolving door theory to my own life, whether it is upscaling someone, upskilling someone, mentoring someone, or helping them out with the idea of pushing them back into the world so that they can continue doing that to someone else. So the revolving door has stuck with me. And while I was at radio, the seed got planted. Well, have you ever thought of doing TV? And I was like, okay, maybe I should think about doing TV. And I remember saying to myself, when I finish my studies, I'll do a little presenting course and then I'll see where it goes. And that's what I did. I had set my mind on doing a presenting course. So when I finished off my honors year at Stellenbosch, I did my little presenter course. And it was 6 weeks long, once a week on a Monday evening for 3 hours. I think it was from 7 to 10 p.m. So I went to the little lesson every week. And while I was there, one of the guys said, you know what? I hear there's a new show called Presenter Search on 3. They are looking for 3 brand new presenters. There are 3 shows and they're looking for 3. Let's go as a class and audition. So we went for fun, and it just showed that sometimes you just need to take those chances. And for me, it was being in the right place at the right time. And I made it all the way through. And as Damien mentioned earlier, part of that story was I actually didn't make it into the top 30 initially. I was just said, thank you. You're not part of the top 30. You can go. And I was re-entered into the competition as a wild card entrant. But at that time, I remember saying to myself, I loved the feeling I felt being in front of the camera. I loved the environment, and I realized that is something I need to pursue. So even if it didn't happen through this competition, that's not necessarily the end of the road for me. I must just keep doing it. So when I finished off my university days, I went to an agency and I asked them, are you open to representing me? This is my life plan. I'm currently working at KFM. I'm a student that's about to wrap up her honors degree. And I have a vision of being on TV. And I said to her, I'm giving myself 6 months, because in my mom and dad's eyes, doing radio is not a proper job. So when I left university, I said to them, if I can sustain my own lifestyle, i.e. you guys don't pay pocket money, you don't contribute towards my rent, I don't cost you a cent, then technically radio is a job. So that's how I had to prove it to my mom and dad that radio is actually considered a job. But while I was in that meeting with the agency, I said to her, I'm giving myself 6 months, because I promised my parents I will get a proper job after 6 months. I'm going to give this whole radio and TV thing a go. And she said to me, Zoe, 6 months is not realistic. You need to maybe give yourself 18 months or 24 months, but 6 months is not realistic. I graduated that December of 2015. And my first day on the Expresso morning show after winning that part of Presenter Search was on the 1st of June, exactly 6 months. And I'm a big believer in putting goals in place and also saying them out loud. I believe in, and I'm not joking when I say put it into the universe, because you'll be surprised how often when you look back, how many things have come to fruition, if I can put it that way. So that is, in a nutshell, how my TV journey started. That was in 2015 when I joined the Expresso morning show. And I'm going to fast forward now, because last year I was completely burnt out. I was working from 4 a.m. in the morning. I did afternoon radio on KFM till 7 p.m. Then I haven't even had any minutes for myself. And if I do go to the gym, which was only twice a week, I would only get home at 8:30 for the first time that day after leaving home at 4 a.m. And I realized this is not sustainable. And I remember I had a work trip in Malawi where there was no cell phone reception. I had a break from reality. It was about 4 days long, the trip. And I realized, oh my goodness, why am I working myself to the bone to a point where I'm so exhausted and I don't feel like I'm actually enjoying life? I'm not enjoying the age, the time frame that I'm in right now. I'm just working from sunrise to sunset. And while in Malawi, I made the decision, maybe I need to let one of the two profiles that currently makes up who I am, maybe I need to let one of them go. And it wasn't an easy decision. So my parents live in Durban, and I remember phoning my dad and I'm like, I really need to see you. I really need to have a conversation with you. I'll come home the weekend of your birthday, but please can we just set some time aside, because I just need to talk to you about something important. And I remember the day after his birthday, we went for a drive and I just told him exactly where I was at. I said to him, I feel overworked. I feel like if I have to let one go, it might have to be TV. I did the pros and cons for both, but I said to him, I know for a fact I can't continue doing both. And all he said to me was, whatever decision I decide to make, he'll support me, but I need to think the decision through and stick to it, because doubt will creep in. And true to Bob, after making the decision to leave Expresso, doubt did kick in. It wasn't a decision I made lightly. It wasn't a decision I took for granted. And for me, I just took the risk. And you know what? If I step away from a platform that has become so part of my identity, what else could potentially be out there for me? Those were the questions I kept asking. And I was very fortunate enough to go for an audition and get an Afrikaans show that was part of a co-host role. And that gave me the courage and the encouragement I needed to be like, okay, you did not make the wrong mistake, because like my dad said, doubt would creep in, and it did. Then at the start of this year, the pandemic hit. And for me, I know a lot of small businesses were hit extremely hard. I don't think anyone prepared for it. And I'm one, maybe I'm that person, but for me, what I realized was I needed to change my mindset. So instead of seeing it as a lockdown, oh my gosh, I'm stuck in my house for 3 weeks, I shifted my mindset and said, okay, you work in media, media never stops, you never ever take a break. Treat these next 3 weeks as the break you can never give yourself. And then the 3 weeks turned into 5 weeks. And there was something calm about just having that shift in perspective where I allowed myself that break that I normally, sorry, they are busy building. If you live in Sea Point, there's constantly construction. But for me, it was just, being on lockdown, I refused to allow it to get to me mentally. And it's easier said because it did get to me. It was difficult staying by myself. My family was far away from me. I was worried about my parents' health. And luckily, radio was still ongoing. We had permits that allowed us to travel to work and back. But that was it. And what I decided to do during those 5 weeks was I got myself a very big puzzle. I went to Macro before lockdown was announced, and I bought myself a 1,500 piece puzzle. It was a beautiful elephant running through the dust. That's what the picture was. So once you take all those pieces out, you actually realize every single piece is brown. So I had 1,500 brown pieces all over my lounge floor. And that's what kept me busy. And I found such a beautiful life lesson from that puzzle experience, because so often we force things. Because there was a time when I was building the puzzle and this one piece looked like it had to fit in that one space. And I even forced it in with my finger, and I was still thinking to myself, jeepers, could the manufacturers at least cut this puzzle properly? You force it, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to leave it. It was only as I got closer to the end of the puzzle that I realized that piece was never supposed to be there. And for me, it was such an aha moment where so often we force things. So often we, push on where you're supposed to just let go. And the thing I learned is with time, everything makes sense. You get to see the bigger picture, but sometimes you need to allow time to happen. And I think so often, a lot of us, especially those who were hit extremely hard during this pandemic, I do believe that once some time has come and gone, we'll be able to look back and see a different picture compared to the one we're in right now. So that for me was such a aha moment. And if I speak to a lot of small businesses, I do realize the impact it's had for them. So what we do on the show, and I say we because Carl Wastie is the mastermind behind the FlashDrive, but his theory is always it's our show. It's not his show, it's our show. So I'm also adapting that it's our show. But he is such a smart man, and he has got such a kind heart for small businesses. So we have this feature that developed during lockdown called BizBoost, and we want to give small businesses the opportunity to tell us their story, because at the end of the day, if you hear someone's story, you believe a bit better in their product. And stories is what people connect to. And during a year where we were separated from our loved ones or even our colleagues, I realized more and more how important it is to connect to people. And before I tell you more about BizBoost, something that used to, when I was with Expresso back in the day, the one thing people would always do is they would come and hug me. For someone that is very aware of personal space, and we were joking earlier, I was saying I was shy. For someone that's a little bit more of an introvert to some degree, to have people just come up and hug you and have people just come and invade your personal space, for me, it was always it just triggered anxiety. And I had to I always had to just take a step back and remind myself, hang on, it's nothing personal. They are just excited to see you, or they watch you every morning in their lounge. So it's not I just had to shift my mindset. And I have to say that's the one thing I missed during the pandemic, is actually everyone's hugs, because I took it for granted. But back to BizBoost, as I was saying. So what we've done is we want small businesses to connect with us. So if you're listening to me right now and you would love to be part of BizBoost, it is simple. We call you up on air and we find out, what is your story? How did you start? How did lockdown impact you? And we give you that boost that your business needs on air. And we always say our platform is your platform. And I feel like that's such a beautiful mantra to have, because for me to be in the public eye, I feel sometimes guilty for the platform that I have, because it was never growing up the dream I had for myself. I sometimes joke and say I stumbled across it, but at the end of the day, I also worked really, really hard to have the platform that I have. So to myself, I shouldn't really say that I feel guilty. I suppose it's just the nature of who I am, but it's just, for me, I also worked hard to maintain the platform that I have. So I have every right to it. But that being said, I want to use it for good. And that's what we want to do on our show, is we want to give small businesses the boost that they need. So if you are interested in being part of BizBoost, whether you are selling fudge from home or you've had to completely change track because what you were doing is no longer operational because of lockdown, and you've had to completely do a side business, that is what BizBoost is all about. So you're welcome to send us an email. That email address is flash, FLASH, at kfm.co.za, and you can simply just tell us what your business is, what you sell, and our producer will be in contact with you to be part of BizBoost. But for that for us is a big thing, is using our platforms for good. And speaking of platforms, I know when it comes to flash at kfm.co.za, that's right, thanks Damien. So when it comes to platforms, and I think people, I don't like the term influencer. I feel like those who have become influencers, it's a little bit of a, we poke fun at it, but I suppose at the end of the day, you are influencer when you do a campaign, a social media campaign. But when it comes to campaigns and brands using influencers, I think as a business or as the brand, do a little research in who your influencer is. I'm saying that because I've noticed more and more, I realize a lot of people have bills they need to pay, but also so often people just say yes to a campaign because there's a monetary value to it. I think as a brand, you have what you stand for, and it would be great to align your campaign or your product or your vision with that of someone that matches it. And I think there's nothing more unauthentic than someone doing Pantene shampoo and then all of a sudden Tresemme shampoo and then all of a sudden organics. To the outside world, that kind of comes across as, well, maybe that person doesn't know who they are, or perhaps they're just doing it for the money. So how can I really trust what they are saying, whether they're reviewing the product correctly or not? That's just my take on it. I feel as a brand, if you're going to go the influencer route with your product or service, choose someone that fits what you and your company stand for. And that is something I've had to do for myself when it comes to social media campaigns. I wear many hats. There's the TV hat, there's the radio hat, there's the social media hat, and then there's the Zoe hat. But in terms of social media, I have had to say no to a number of campaigns because I just actually didn't feel like it was part of my brand. I didn't feel like it was authentic to who I am as a person. And, you know, you can spend a lot of money at a hairdresser and put all those treatments in your hair, but then I can't go and say yes to an off-the-shelf product because that's not the truth. That off-the-shelf product did not make my hair the way it is. It was going to the hair salon. So that's just one example. And unfortunately, there are quite a few people that will only say yes to a campaign for the money attached to it. But at the end of the day, I think as someone that is have to say yes to a campaign or not, I ask myself, is this something I would have done in my personal capacity? Is this something that wearing the Zoe hat would buy or be interested in? And that is the things I say yes to. And one of the things that I made some notes of some of the things I want to touch on. But one of the things I wanted to also highlight was when I started off at the Expresso morning show, they turned presenter search on 3 into a reality show, and the episode announcing the winners it aired that Friday. And that Monday was my first day on TV. I'll never forget. It was the 1st of June, 2015. And so I was so nervous that entire weekend because I had no experience. I was joining a group of established presenters that each had at least 4 to 5 years of live TV experience under their belt. For me, that was extremely intimidating. And I remember that entire weekend, my stomach was in knots because my first day on national TV was going to be that Monday morning at 6 a.m. and I have no experience. And it's so amazing how sometimes the mind is very powerful and sometimes we use it to like self-destruct. We don't believe in ourselves, and I'm guilty of that. And I just remember phoning my dad, freaking out, saying, what am I going to do? I am a nobody joining a show with so many established personalities. I'm going to drown in their shadows. I'm going to drown in, I'm just going to and he just said to me, Zoe, you know what? You need to look at yourself like a book. We love reading in our family. And he said, when you walk into a library, there are so many different books. You get your hard covers, you get your soft covers, you get your big ones, you get your thin ones. And that theory to this day sticks with me, because I think as your business or you as an individual, if you look at yourself as a book, we are all different. There are popular books, there are books with dust on it. But at the end of the day, no book is the same and no chapter is the same. And I think he just reminded me that I can't compare my chapter X to someone else's chapter Y. And I take that with me through a lot of things that I do. And I remember saying to myself, it's okay, just go on the show, just be yourself. And I feel like that is how if I had to sum up what the Zoe Brown brand is in terms of a business perspective, I would say that she is still the same girl she was at university. She's still the same girl that she was when she started off at radio. And she's still the same girl that she was when she left home after high school. And that for me is how I would define my brand. And I think because my mom and dad, they come from serious, they don't take any nonsense. That also really, really keeps me grounded. And I think for any business, it's so important to identify the DNA of your brand and stick to it. Because the minute it is, there's a difference between evolving your brand and growing your brand. But the minute it's all over the place, people will also start to question, well, what does this brand stand for? What does this person stand for? And that's just something I've had to learn. So whenever campaigns come my way, that is the approach I take. I ask myself, is this something I would do in my own capacity? And is this something I would have done regardless of there being a monetary value attached to it or not? A lot of brands also love to do trade exchange, which is also wonderful. And in terms of, just to touch on what Damien said with setting goals and plans for yourself, I do that myself. And I have a little acronym that I always use because I'm the traffic girl on radio. I use GPS because I'm the verbal GPS on your radio. But if you think of your GPS, your G stands for goal, and that's something I always try and set for myself. Your P stands for plan. You need to put small things in place to get to your goal. And then the S is to start. And I've been guilty of saying, oh, I need to do that, or oh, that's on my to-do list. And I end up making lists of my to-do list to do the to-do list. And it's just like a snowball effect. But that is something I apply to a lot of things in life. And even though I'm back on the Expresso morning show, I am loving it. But it's also now that year that I've taken away from the show, looking back, I can see and feel the growth. I had to put some boundaries in place just to prevent myself from ever reaching that burnt out phase that I was in prior to leaving the show originally. And that comes down to personal boundaries. Unfortunately, I am that person that struggles to say no, and that has bite me in the bum a few times, because I think there is some power to your no. And that is something I constantly need to work on. And that's also when invitation comes my way, I need to take a step back, remove the emotion, and ask myself, is this something I want to do? Is the answer yes or no? And then respond accordingly. So yes, that's me in a nutshell. I hope you got some valuable information from some of the events in my life. I think there are many chapters to who Zoe is, but I just shared a snippet of it, the ones that I thought could be relevant to those who are small business owners, those who are business owners, those who work in business. And I really, really think that, you know, having these SME like check-ins is so important. And I think a lot of people during this pandemic have isolated themselves without actually realizing it. And I do want to just encourage you, if you are worried about the president speaking or anything like that with what the future holds, sometimes we, you know, before a thing even happens, we've like worked that drama scenario through our minds, and then you just build up unnecessary anxiety. So until the president tweets to say that there will be an address or a house meeting this evening, I'm not going to be too worried. And I think at the end of the day, it's also just so important for us to take things one step at a time and not be overwhelmed with the unknown. So that's it for me. If you guys have any questions, I would love to answer them.
So I want to make 2 comments if you don't mind. The first thing I really liked was the fact that you mentioned the influencer / personality discussion, because it's one thing that when we do marketing plans with our customers, we try and push them into a corner of saying, you know, does your business have a personality? So yes, you might not be an individual, or your business might have an ID number, but effectively, can you put a personality around who your business is? And if you can do that, how do you then find the right customers that will fit your business? And by doing that little exercise, it's a nice way of assessing where to look and how to communicate to your customers. So I think a lot of insight can be taken from your brand as Zoe Brown, who you are and what you do. And also the understanding, when do I say no to a particular idea or particular sort of strategy or movement, or even an email campaign I want to run? And then who are the customers I can talk to? Who are the guys or the men and women or the businesses out there who want to hear what I have to say? And I think it's a really great way of sort of defining that communication channel. I also go for it. Yeah.
Do you mind if I just add to that? Because I also feel like when you, and unfortunately there are ways for people to buy followers. So when you do your research, if you are going to go the influencer / social media marketing route with an individual, they don't be blindsided by the big number, because there are some people that buy followers. I would encourage you, when you do your research, is just look down their timeline. How many people are liking a photo in comparison to the amount of followers they have? I have seen people with 105,000 followers, but their photos don't even get 100 likes. And that is a clear indication that that person bought their followers. So sometimes you can even get people that only have 3,000 followers, but the engagements are so high. And I think at the end of the day, when you pick someone to talk or be part of your brand, their audience need to engage with that product. So that's the only way you get your message across as the owner or the business.
100%. And I also think, I mean, like you mentioned, you say you're a little bit introverted and shy. I would never guess that. But 10 to 1, most businesses who are just starting up don't have the budgets or the workaround to try and find a personality to influence their business. And I think one thing we tend to forget, and even myself, you know, as the business owner, we are the brand, we are the business itself. So there's nothing wrong with putting yourself out there a little bit, trying to make yourself more well-known as an individual who then runs your own company, and then slowly but surely moving your personality out of the business and letting the business run its own. So I think it's one thing that we can definitely take away from what you were saying about, you know, your personality, understanding who you are, understanding where you want to go, and how to move that forward with the campaigns you want to run. So for me, that was great. I've heard GPS before, but I finally know what it actually means. So that's a good one. And then I wanted to ask you, as a TV personality and also radio personality, your job pretty much is to be on point 24/7. Whether you go to the shops, whether you go to in front of the camera, or you talk on the radio, if you recognize Zoe Brown is who Zoe Brown has to be according to my eyes and, you know, the people who listen to you and see you. How do you find that balance between working hard and then actually enjoying a bit of a life as well? Because it's like you said, burnout is real. How do you find that good mix of keeping yourself sane?
So I think I'm in the lucky position, because even though I'm on TV and radio every single day, I don't play a role. I am myself. So there's never really that distinction between the girl you see here on your Zoom call compared to the girl you'll hear this afternoon on the radio or tomorrow morning on your TV. I like to think that is me throughout. So also when criticism gets thrown my way, I do take it a little bit harder, because you're not critiquing a role that I'm playing, you're critiquing me as the individual. But that's a sidebar. I think for me, I'm a person first before I'm a presenter, and that means I'm prone to making mistakes. But it's also so important for me to make plans, to have a bit of a life, because you need to live life first before you can share it with your audience. And I think even as a brand, you know, if there's a product you're selling, you need to believe in it. It needs to be part of who you are before other people will buy into it. So for me, I don't know if that answers your question, but I like to think I'm me through and through every portfolio or hat that I wear. I suppose there's never a switch on or a switch off. It's just you see me without makeup or you see me with makeup. It just depends.
So then, what
if
do
I
you
just
do?
come from the gym, or if I'm not even on TV that day.
So what do you do for fun then? What does Zoe Brown do for fun?
I do for fun. I love being outside. So a big thing for me is hiking, being outdoors, going for walks. I have gotten into a little bit of a lockdown routine where I gym 5 days a week, but literally from the comfort of my own lounge. And I find that lockdown shift in just putting myself first, I had to learn that there is actually a difference between being selfish and selfless and self-care, like all of these different things. So for fun, I like to actually get my workout in every day. It's not a big workout. It's like 35 minutes to 40 minutes. And then just literally being out on the mountains, going for a loop around Lion's Head, or going for a walk with a friend along the prom or the pipe track. Those are the things I do for fun. And then every now and then there would be like a little adventure, whether it's sandboarding or going kayaking, but anything outside and I'm happy.
Awesome. I think
I like drinking wine.
Oh, who doesn't? I think many of us as business owners tend to forget sometimes to take that time out and to actually go and do something else other than sitting at home or focusing in the office about what's going on in the world. And sometimes just taking it away, finding that bit of a balance about how to go do your own thing and cut yourself, like you said, cut yourself off from the noise and the constant input of what needs to be done, and just finding a bit of space to breathe and taking a chance to sort of look at the bigger picture as well is a great one. I want to know, because I'm talking the most, is there anyone else who has any questions or wants to have a chat to Zoe? You are guys unmuted. Barbara?
Damien, I'm getting in quickly here because I'm sure there's a lot others. Hello, Zoe. It's Barbara.
Hi. Hey, Barbara.
Zoe, I must firstly tell you, thank you for that. It was really inspiring. And secondly, my husband and I started watching you on Expresso many moons ago and just fell in love with you. We stopped watching Expresso when you went off. And we are now back on Expresso again, just to check you out every now and then in the morning again and just get some vibrancy. But my big question to you today is, I actually saw you on Anzal in the Boerland.
Oh, yes.
So I was just wondering, when are you going to be an Anzal in the Boerland, or a Zoe in the Boerland, or Zoe somewhere, and do those sort of shows for us?
Zoe's own show. You know what? That is part of my GPS plan. I think, thank you for that. I would love to have my own show. The only thing is now trying to find the identity of what's going to set that show apart. There are so many people with their own YouTube channels right now. There are people doing shows for Netflix and Showmax. I love Anzal's concept of Anzal in Boerland. So I just need to put the thinking cap on and really think of what show is it that will set my show apart. And then I need to pitch it to some production houses. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of them that are open to new show content. I just need to be a bit more on the creative side with what it is I want to do. What I love about a platform like Expresso is they really do make you do a bit of everything, whether it's fitness, cooking, health chats. So that in itself is for me a very unique platform, and being alive every single day, there's a high you get from it. But yes, that is part of my plan, is to have my own show. I just need to figure out what it is that I want to capture.
Excellent. Now, I'm sure you'll get there, and we look forward to that one. We'll wait for that one.
Thank you. Thank you, Barbara. I
Zoe
appreciate
Brown in,
that.
this, in series.
There we go.
And zeros on a fruit juice box.
I
Marketing's not my forte.
see Corin's asked the question, as a public persona, how do you deal with a day when you're feeling off? Do you just push through?
I unfortunately have to push through. I have had, let me share with you. So, okay, I'm a big cat lady. I have the sweetest little cat. You might have heard her meow in the background. So this is the hard part of the position I'm in terms of my job. I can't just call in sick. There's like, if I call in sick now, they'll have enough time to get someone to do traffic. But at 2 o'clock, 2:30 in the afternoon, if anything happens, I can't just call in sick. You sometimes just need to suck it up and put on a brave face. So my last cat last year, I had to rush him to the ICU in the middle of the night. And there were only 3 presenters on the morning show. And I remember getting to the morning show at 4 o'clock in the morning and phoning the vet to just check in. Is my cat okay? What's going on with him? And they were like, he's stable, but nothing has improved. And that entire morning, I knew when this live show is done, I need to go to the vet and I need to go say goodbye to my cat, because we've had a little stint in the ICU. And I just realized I've always wondered, where's the line to letting pet go? And that's when I realized this is the line. I'm at that line. And I remember being on the live show, and every 10 minutes, the poor makeup artist had to come powder me, because the minute I didn't look at work or was in front of the camera, I thought of this cat, and I would just get so emotional. And I remember my floor manager coming to me and he's like, what is wrong? And I literally had to say to him, if I tell you, I'm going to cry. And he's like, don't tell me. So I think I have gotten quite good at being able to compartmentalize my emotions. I can keep it together. Doesn't necessarily mean I'm faking it, but I have managed to keep it together, do what I need to do, and then when I'm in my own safe space, to let go. So yeah, for me, I'm keeping it together. I'm not faking it. I can just, I think it's a skill I've managed to acquire.
Awesome. Anybody else have any questions?
I do.
Hi,
It's
Lisa.
Hello. Zoe, so is there a book on the horizon that Zoe is going to either write or have ghostwritten?
I should. I just feel like maybe I haven't lived enough life yet to bring that book out.
Okay.
I really, really enjoy, I mean, I have my little book stand here, and for me, your book is actually there. It's next on my to read list.
Okay.
I don't have a book idea yet, but I do have friends that have said to me, we write all these stories down. Of space, I have met so many interesting people, and I've seen the most bizarre things, and it's the type of things that needs to be documented and reshared. So for example, something I didn't share with you was when I was a poor student at Stellenbosch, I started working at KFM, and I didn't have a car. So I had to commute from Stellenbosch to Greenpoint twice a week. That was a Friday and a Saturday, to do my radio show from midnight to 4. And I remember not having a car and having to take the train from Stellenbosch to Greenpoint. And it wasn't that long ago. It was now in 2015 and 2014. And I remember sitting next to all the mamas, because I just had to like be safe and like sit next to like all the ladies. I found it safer that way. And I remember this one day, there was a mom with a toddler, and she was breastfeeding her baby girl. But what I didn't realize was it wasn't a baby. It was like a 4 or 5-year-old, because the kid said to her mom, "Nee, mommy, ek kan nie so drink nie." And I was like, oh, that's actually a child that can speak, and it's still breastfeeding off. So that was one of the like funny moments. And it was actually so sweet to reminisce with some friends about, the struggles we've gone through and where we are now, and just, the beauty of the future of where we will be. But it's very important for me to take stock of that, because life can be so crazy where you run around, but it's only when you look back and reflect that you actually realize, hang on, there was some growth, or hang on, there's a bit of a difference. And I think I need to start documenting some of those things, so that when the moment comes, I can bring out an awesome book.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think you also mentioned when I interviewed you that you have a lot of young people following you. And I think maybe there's something there, to give them some, some goal setting and some hope and things like that. So yeah, definitely a book has to resonate with you in the right moment. So I'm sure you will.
Okay. Thank you. I'll definitely be reaching out to you, Lisa, when that day comes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Another nice one to add to your GPS again, I think. Eh?
Yes, definitely.
All right, guys, we're getting close to 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock. Any more comments or questions from anyone else?
Yeah, Damien, if I could pop in here quickly. Just to say, Zoe, what a wonderful young lady you are. I'm about 3 times your age. And one of the things that I spend most of my time doing is speaking to large corporates. And I find that the general negativity that I come across is completely counteracted by your attitude. You're such a wonderful, positive influence. And I just wanted to encourage you and say, we need more people like you. I'm amazed at what you've achieved at your tender young age. And yet you seem to be doing it with a lot of common sense and with a lot of humility. So I just wanted to say, I've just followed you on the side as well. So I'm one of your old followers. And yeah, I've absolutely loved having you here today.
Andre, thank you so much. I really appreciate those kind words, and thank you. I think for me, at the end of the day, just trying to stay true to who I am. And I am a girl of faith. So I there's a song that goes about, I'm a nobody trying to tell everybody about somebody. And I think whoever that somebody is to you, I'd like to think that light shines through me, and this is part of my purpose. But thank you so much for those kind words.
Yeah, you have a responsibility to so many people. So whatever you're doing it right, and just keep doing it.
Thank you. I definitely will. Thank you so much for that. I feel like I'm blushing now.
I think I can second that. Thank you, Andre. You took the words out of my mouth completely. So thank you. If that's it, then guys, I'm going to say thank you so much, Zoe. We really appreciate the time, and of course, hearing your story a bit more. The last question I've got for you is, you're talking about singing. Do you sing at all or not really?
I don't, and I come from a family that can sing. My brother was in national choirs. My sister is one of those girls that can watch a YouTube video and teach herself how to play the piano. They are very musically inclined, and even though I love singing, I cannot hold a note. And my parents would always joke and say, "Ach, my kind, jy moet maar net glimlach." Like, I'm not the child that should sing.
Awesome. All right, guys. So
I'm not a singer.
So Zoe's offered us a bit of a way to connect to the flash drive. So flash, FLASH at kfm.co.za. So if you guys are keen to connect, I think I will be trying to connect anyway. But again, thank you, Zoe. I appreciate the time, and looking forward to hearing more of you and about you.
Fantastic. And then, when you send us your email, your little blurb of mention it was part of the Optigrowth, and then I can make sure the producer also favors those emails.
Awesome. It's good to have connections.
Cool. No, definitely. Thank you so much for your time, and everyone have a wonderful, what's today, Thursday.
Thank you, Zoe. That was awesome.